In this video, let's go through a line by line analysis of the prologue to the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. Now, Chaucer's prologue to Canterbury Tales begin with a description of April. The month April is described in the beginning of the poem. Now, Chaucer talks about April as if April is the sweetest month. April is the beginning of the spring season. It comes after winter, and this spring season is described in the beginning lines. If you go through the highlighted words, you find words such as sweet showers, the engendering of the flower, Cyprus, he is the Greek god of the west wind, Cyprus with his sweet breath, meaning the gentle breeze in the springtime, the tender shoots, the young sun, the small fowl or the small birds that are making melodies, that are singing songs. All this point out to a very beautiful and sweet spring. Now, this part of the prologue of the Canterbury Tales is often compared to T.S. Eliot's Wasteland. Eliot's Wasteland begins with again a description of April, but in a very different way. Eliot calls April as the cruelest month, when April is thought of as the sweetest month by Chaucer. This is a very important reference that T.S. Eliot has used in Wasteland, so it would be good if you could keep this in mind. Anyway, we understand from these lines the setting of the poem. The poem begins on a positive note, and we understand that it is springtime. It is a very positive, pleasant time of the year. And Chaucer says, this time of the year, April, has been so sweet with the sweet showers, the breeze, the young sun, and the birds making melodies. All these has led to a growth in spirituality in the people. So this month has become, April has become a spiritual month. And that is what he means with the line that nature pricks them meaning the people, and their heart engages. So people start to feel a spirituality in them during the springtime. Now, since April is giving out such vibes, the people all long to go for pilgrimages during this time of the year. And there are palmers who long to seek the stranger strands. And even the narrator of our poem, even the speaker, is one such person who is also going on a pilgrimage. And he says during this time of the year, people from every corner of England, from every shire's end of England, go to the Canterbury where they seek the blessings of the holy martyr Sir Thomas Becket to give his help to them when they are sick. So the speaker is also on one such journey on a pilgrimage, and during that season, he is taking rest in one of the inns, and the inn is the Tabard Inn. It happened in that season that one day in Southwark at Tabard Inn as I lay, I is the speaker, ready to go on pilgrimage and start for Canterbury. So he is laying in the Tabard Inn. He is ready to go for the pilgrimage and very devout at heart. And that is when, during the night, 9 and 20, a company of 9 and 20, that is 29 other people who are also going on a pilgrimage. They were all pilgrims that towards Canterbury meant to ride. So these 29 people who came, they are all pilgrims. And just like the speaker, they are supposed to go to the Canterbury. They were just there for a day's rest, a night's rest. So the rooms and the stables for the horses were all set. And after the sunset, they decided that they will wake up the next day early in the morning, and then they would all leave to Canterbury together. Now, our speaker feels that since he has time, since they are only leaving to Canterbury the next day, he will use the time that he has, and he would tell the readers about the different pilgrims who has come to the Tabard Inn, with whom he will go to the Canterbury next day. So he is telling us it seems a reasonable thing to say what their condition was, the full array of each of them, as it appeared to me, according to profession and degree, and what apparel they were riding in. And he is going to tell us about their profession, what type of job they are doing, and their degree, the class, the social class, and their apparel, their clothing, but mostly their appearance. Thus, one by one, Chaucer is giving us portraits of these pilgrims. we can call these portraits as pen portraits because Chaucer is not painting the picture with a paintbrush but with a pen. With words, he is painting a picture of each of these characters. Now, according to Chaucer, the knight is a perfect gentleman. He calls him the most distinguished man, a very respectable man. He is a man with chivalry, truth, honor, generousness, and courtesy. He performs all his duties well for the king, and he is ever honored for his noble graces. And in the next few lines, Chaucer talks about all these battles in which the knight has taken part in. And from these lines, we understand Chaucer's extensive knowledge on geography and history because he talks about all these battles and all these places from all over the world. And after giving a description of the achievements of this knight, of his power and glory, Chaucer says that even though the knight was such a distinguished man, he was also very wise and modest. Modest as a maid, he was a very humble man. And he never said anything bad to anyone. And yes, he was a very true, perfect, and gentle knight. Those three words simply describe everything about the knight: a very true, very honest, a very loyal knight, and a perfect. Yes, he has won many battles. He is the perfect knight any ruler would want. And gentle, even though he was the distinguished person, a very distinguished man, he is very gentle and very humble. So, the three words, the true, perfect, gentle knight, describes the entire personality of the knight. And then, talking about the equipments this person had, Joseph says that the knight had fine horses. And of course, he is a knight who has won several battles. His horses would be as good as him. He had fine horses, but he was not well dressed. He was not gaily dressed. He wore a Futsian tunic stained and dark, and there were smudges where his armor, his weapons had left mark. And it seemed like he was just home from service. And the knight is the first person that Chaucer describes. From what we have read about him, Chaucer was very impressed with the knight. He was an old man, but a very wise and honored man. And Chaucer shows a perfect portrait of the knight. Here we have a picture of the knight. Now, as we can see, he is old. He is wearing dark clothes. His dress is a bit stained. It's dark, not that well dressed. And he has a sword, and maybe because of the armor, he has some marks on the dress. And of course, as we can see, his horse is very strong, a very fine horse. And the next pilgrim that we get to meet is the squire, the son of the knight that we just discussed. Now, unlike his father, the squire is a man who is very energetic. Of course, he is young. He is only 20 years of age. He is a very fine young man, a lover, a cadet, a soldier, and a lad of fire. He has curly hair, and it seems his curly hair, the locks are being pressed, which means that he takes good care of his appearance. He is of a moderate height, he has good agility and strength, and he has done some service as a soldier, most probably to win his lady's grace. So you might have understood, unlike the knight that we met, the old, wise, very strong man, the squire is very young, he's only 20 years old. He is very adventurous, he is agile, he is lusty, and he is well dressed. And Chaucer says that the clothes worn by the knight are embroidered like a meadow, bright and full of freshest flowers. His clothes are all embroidered with flowers, both red and white. And he sings. He sings and he does fluting. He plays the flute all day. He was as fresh as is the month of May, just a very young, fresh man. Short was his gown, the sleeves were long and wide. He knew the way to sit a horse and ride. And he also made songs, poems, and he even recited them. He knew how to dance and draw and write. He was just so energetic, and by night he slept like a little nightingale. And towards the end, Joseph says that the squire cared for his father. He was very courteous, lowly, serviceable, and carved to serve his father at the table. As you can see in the picture, the squire is very young. He is a lad of fire. You can see his curls pressed, his hair well set, and the dress embroidered with flowers red and white. And you also find his gown, the short gown, and the sleeves that are very long. Now, moving on, we have the yeoman. Now, yeoman, the knight, and the squire, the three of them came as a group. You have these three pilgrims coming into the Tabard Inn as a group. A yeoman is like an attendant, a helper. He's an attendant who works in a noble household. This yeoman was the only servant that the knight and the squire had brought along with them. Now, the yeoman, he wore a coat and a hood of green. He had peacock feathered arrows which were bright and keen, and they were neatly arranged and hung at his belt. Now, as we would expect from him, he has a lot of weapons all over his body. He is well geared. And Chaucer says he told already he had some arrows with him. He has a mighty bow, and on one side he has a shield and a sword, and also a hunting horn. So he is, of course, he is there for their protection, for the knights and the squires' protection. So he has everything that he requires. His head is like a nut, and his face was brown. Apart from all this, something that is noteworthy about the yeoman is a small medal of Saint Christopher that he is wearing on his chest. And he knew the whole of woodcraft, he knew the forest very well. And Chaucer calls him a proper forester. He was a proper forester, I guess. Here's a pictorial representation of the yeoman. Now, as we can see, he has the arrows, the bow, the shield, and the sword, and everything that Chaucer has told about. And you can see his head is more or less like a nut, and he's tanned, and his face is brown. Now, based on the previous pictures, we understand that this person is definitely from a different social class. So we have completed the lines wherein Chaucer talks about the yeoman, a loyal servant and also a good fighter who has weapons all over his body and who is well equipped. So in this video, we have discussed the first group of pilgrims, the knight, the squire, and the yeoman. The three of them came together to the Tabard Inn, the knight being a true, perfect, gentle knight, and his son, the squire, who is a lover, who is very adventurous, who is young, and who has agility, strength, who can sing and who can dance. And along with them came the yeoman, who is like an attendant to them. He has also come with them. He has a lot of gears with him, and who is he's also a proper forester. So the three people we have met. We will continue with the other pilgrims in another video. Please let me know your suggestions in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching.